I'm going to, somebody that wants to try to figure out the 3-digit combination. I'm going to give it to you, and if you do, I got $20 in my pocket, I'm going to give it to you. Does anyone give this a shot? All right, come on. Come get it. So while I'm doing these sessions, you can figure out the 3-digit code, and if you figure it out, I got $20 for you. If you don't, I don't have $20 for you, but you can go. Now, it is locked, right? It's locked, just make sure, okay. The thing is, you have to give me what the 3 digits were, though, so you can't, like, break into it, or, because someone told me they have a trick with, like, a Coke can. I was like, Kyle told me that. I was like, no. So you got to give me, because if you know a trick that, but, okay, you got to give me those 3 digits when you unlock it, and then I'll give you $20. So, all right, skill number 5, juiceful routines. Where do you get your greatest competitive advantage? The answer to that is this. It's in doing the things that everybody has to do at an elite level. So did we have that as a fill in the blank? We do. I gave you the blank though. Okay. But it's in doing the things that everybody has to do, but doing it at an elite level, right? We can all work hard, but we've got to get the right strategies to do that at an elite level. So one of those is our routines, doing routines at an elite level. 2 essential numbers. 86,400 seconds per day. Number 2, 168. That's hours per week. The number one thing that we all have in common are these. Every athlete, every performer, every person has the same 86,400 seconds, the same 168 hours per week. The competitive advantage is who's using those the best. Who's making the most out of that time, or the seconds, the minutes, 1,440, which I talked about earlier. So a question for you to ask yourself is, how will you structure your days to maximize your 168 hours per week? The way I do it is I use Google Calendar. I do time blocks. A great book is called Deep Work by Cal Newport. In that, he talks about having time blocks. So I just have time blocks. I literally have a time block for my sleep. So what we'll talk about here, you see at the bottom, there's ideal day example number 1. I tell everybody that I work with, come up with what an ideal day looks like for you. When do you want to wake up and when do you want to go to bed? I always start there, and then now let's fill in the gaps. What does an ideal day look like for you? Because again, if we don't have a target, we don't know if we're hitting it. What's an ideal day look like? This is the time management and organization piece that some of y'all are like, this sounds restricting. Trust me, I was there too, but there's freedom in having my schedule, because now I'm telling my day what to do and the day's not telling me what to do. Instead of the day being my boss, I'm my boss. Does that make sense? So time blocks. The thing that you and I have the most control over is our AM and our PM routines, especially if you work for someone else. Once you're at work, you're doing what that job requires you to do. But everybody can wake up 5 minutes earlier and everybody can go to bed 5 minutes earlier, right? We have control for the most part of those things. And you say, well, I have kids, so do I, but they have a bedtime. And then I decide what I'm going to do after that. So if I decide to binge watch for 5 hours of television, well, now my next day is screwed up, because the best day for tomorrow starts tonight. Pastor Stephen and I were just talking about this, because he has 18 kids. And when you're going to go on a trip with those kids, if you don't pack everything and have it already set up and out the night before, it's at least a 2-hour delay the next morning. But if you have it out the night before, it's like, and you leave when you said you were going to leave. It's the same concept. I actually set out my clothes the night before for what I want to wear the next day. Now, for me, it's easy. I only wear black t-shirts. I don't wear anything else. I always wear black. It might have a saying on it, but it's a black t-shirt. Kind of eliminates decisions, because there is such a thing as decision fatigue. I have to make a lot of decisions. Most of my job is on the phone, making decisions, helping people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For me, I pretty much have 2 or 3 pairs of blue jeans that I wear. I have a couple different shoes that I rotate, and a black t-shirt of some type. That's pretty much my uniform. And I wear it all the time. I'm not super cool stylish, but I really don't care, because I'm trying to be great at what I do, and if that eliminates me trying to impress someone, I just don't really care. I have some nice things. I'm not anti-nice things. but I'm also not I am anti-impressing you for the sake of you being impressed. I want to be better and great, so I don't really care. But that's what I do. One thing from Michael Phelps, he had a great book about his book, No Limits, about how to train your brain. One of them was daily meditation. He said that he does that, and again, we can all do that. If you put it in your habit tracking app, it'll actually start to get done. So teach yourself to do that. Number 2, he said you got to be willing to do what needs to be done, whatever that is. I don't feel like swimming laps, but I'm going to get up and I'm going to swim laps. Number 3, when you get off course, we talked about this earlier, you get back on. Yeah, but I haven't done it, right? Anybody ever had that with a phone call? Like you were supposed to make a phone call, good or bad, and you forgot, and then now it's been 3 or 4 days, and you're like, I don't want the embarrassment of calling them, and what am I going to say to them that I failed on my end? Anybody ever been there, or am I the only one? Or you've put off a tough conversation because you don't want to have it, and eventually it catches up to you, right? Like, we just got to get back on. Start to stop for most people. So I put in here for your examples, ideal day examples. Number 1, there's an example. Number 2, you can go look through it. These are time blocks within 30-minute increments, and you can go make your own document and do that. Sample ideal week, what you want that to look like. I put all that in there so that you can go do your own. If you were a one-on-one teammate of mine, I would actually help you piece all this together specifically, but we're at a workshop, and one-on-one's a little more expensive because of the time. So, AM and PM routines, we talked about that just a little bit. If you develop one of those, what is your AM routine? Write it out. What's your PM routine? Write it out and then execute that. Don't leave it to chance. Make it a routine. So what does it mean to you to book in your days? Please write out what you will do in your PM routine. Write out what you'll do in your AM routine. Sample ones on the next page, page 45. AM routine, wake up, go to the bathroom, weigh in, get dressed. Make my bed, have breakfast, call Success Hotline. I'll tell you what that is in a second. Watch a video in this course, read that day. Read the Daily Dominator, 3 minutes of 6-8 meditation. PM routine, set out clothes for tomorrow, pack bags. Set your 168 for the next day. Remember, it's 168 hours. What's my next day? Phone on airplane mode, 5 minutes of mental imagery, lights out. So those are just examples. Create your own, what you're going to do to get ready for the day and how you're going to end the day. I believe it was Benjamin Franklin that talked about taking an inventory of your day. That's what a PM routine lets you do. What did I accomplish today? All of that. Habit loops. This is what habits are and aren't. Number 1, the first step is that there's a trigger. And when that trigger happens, number 2 starts to happen. It puts you into a routine. And the reason why we have routines is so that we get a reward, right? So negative habit loop would be a bad call by an official. Routine, now I go into bad body language. Reward is I feel sorry for myself, right? There's negative and positive habit loops. The rewards can be negative or positive. Positive habit loop, the trigger was a bad call, but I decided not to allow it to be bad. So I instead act different than how I feel. Big body language, breath, I say the word good. Hey, the ref didn't give me the call I wanted, good. Reward, I'm now ready for the next play, right? It can be whatever. One of the habit loops for me is picking weeds at my house. I have a habit that my trigger is when I get home and I park my car and I'm walking to the front door, if I see a weed, I pick it. Well, what happens is, if there's multiple weeds, I end up picking a lot more weeds. Why? Because an object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. There's a reward to it. I've now accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. You know what that does? Keeps weeds out of my front yard. Front rocks. I live in New Mexico. Y'all have grass. We have rocks. And it keeps the weeds out of my rocks, though. So it's my habit trigger. I've made it a thing. When I see the weed, I pick the weed. And naturally, I'm like, whoops, because that's a reward, right? Once you pick 10, 12 weeds, you're like, I feel good, even if it's just the one. I did something, right? They start to stack up. So, trigger loops. All right. That is the quick overview of just routines. Develop yourself a routine, AM routine, PM routine. What are those routines going to look like for you? For if you play a sport, I tell athletes to get a pre-shot routine, whatever that looks like. So for them, some of them, I'll just use golf because that's the one I'm around the most is golfers. I tell them, hey, Strap in means lock it in. I put my glove on, that starts my process. Now, my routine is I get my laser, I see where my target is, how far it is, then I put the laser up. Now I assess, well, what kind of shot do I want to hit? I want the ball to go here. Is it going to be a high cut? Am I going to hit a draw into there? Am I going to try to hit straight? Am I going to run it up there? Whatever I'm going to do. Then I get my club. Now I get that. Now my routine goes to, I've got it all. I take my couple practice swings on what I want to do there. I'm here. I've got it. I've got the feel of it, okay? I tap my club on the ground. That tells me now I'm not thinking about anything other than executing all the stuff that I just saw. So I take a breath, tap my club. One guy take 3 steps to the ball. I set my club down. I get my grip. I get my feet set. Take my last look. Some guys it's, hey, I'm just kind of a, where's my club going? Execute. Now my routine to come out of it, I call it the focus funnel. You've got your pre-shot, your pre-play box, you're in your play box, which is executing the shot. Now how do I come out of it? So I tell guys, some of us, what we can do for our own lives, take the meaningless things you do and give them meaning. A lot of guys like to clean their club after a golf shot. The reason they do that at the higher levels is so that they don't have to think about cleaning it when they're going to hit they know they're going to have a clean club. I said, that's great, but what if you took that and now you put meaning to it? I'm wiping the shot away so that I can let it go. If you're ticked off at the shot, deep clean it. That's fine. Because what that does is it focuses you on cleaning it and you're letting it go. So for us, and whatever our context is, how do we come into our whatever we need to focus on? How do we stay focused? And how do we come out of that? How do I release that, let it go? Another example I use is if you had a tough day or tough moment, tough thing, go find a toilet, get some toilet paper, throw it in there and flush it. Why? Because last time I checked, nobody goes and uses a toilet and wants to get anything back. You got to let it go. We got to learn to flush. I have a toy toilet in my office that I use. It's a little toy that when you flush it, it makes a flushing sound. But you don't have one of those, or you can go buy one on Amazon. It's a game called Toilet Trouble. I think I gave one to your staff last time I was here. So they have one. Because sometimes you got to flush stuff. You got to let it go. Because if you don't let it go and you hold on to that crap, well, now it's just compounding. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to keep holding on to these mental bricks. I got to let them go. I got to let those things go. All right, so that's routines. Juiceful culture. I put bonus skill, juiceful culture. MVP process. This is what I call the mission, vision, and principles, MVP. And it's all about being your own MVP. Most people in life don't have a personal mission statement. You've seen jobs, businesses that have mission statements, but I'm real big on individuals having one. And so, like for me, my mission statement is to inspire, educate, and empower others to be all that they were created to be. That's my life mission. So what does that mean? That means if you paid me, so I charge $250 an hour to work with people one-on-one. So if you paid me and we're working together, but you don't do any of the stuff that I'm giving you to do as we're working together, I will stop taking your money and we will stop working together. You say, well, why? You could still pay you. I'm not inspiring, educating, or empowering that individual. I've stopped working with people that if you're not going to work the tools, I don't want to waste my time because the money's not the motivator for me. I do other things, and yes, money, I want money. Who doesn't want more? But if that becomes my motivator, then I'm a slave to that money, and I'll just accept anything. And I've chosen that I'm only going to work with people that want to be worked with and that want to work the tools, right? So that's my mission. So if I'm not inspiring, educating, or empowering someone, I'm doing them a disservice because then I'm not living out what I was created to be. Does that make sense? So that's my personal mission statement. This took some time for me to develop, but I developed one. Vision, the V part, is what do you want to accomplish in your life? So vision is my goals. So I try to tell people, these change, vision changes, but have quarterly visions. What do I want in this next quarter? What do I want in this quarter? You know, you can have your big vision, your big goals, but what do I want in my quarter? And then your principles. What are your core principles that you live by or that you are going to live by, right? So these are the questions for you to answer for yourself. What's your mission? Essentially, what do you want others to say about you at the end of your life? If I'm doing your funeral, what do you want people to be saying? That this person did this, 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 and this. So what I want is people at the end of my life to say, Stevie inspired, educated, or empowered me in some way to be all that I was created to be. When I was around him, he brought the juice. He brought energy. He brought life. Does that make sense? So it takes some hard work. Some of this is a little difficult. You can even just take mine and edit it to say what you want it to say. That's fine too, because again, there's nothing new under the sun. But what's your mission? What's your personal vision? Basically, what do you want to accomplish in your life? And then what are your core principles? I put here, start with at least one and then work to have 3 to 5. I have 5 myself, my core principles. I'll give you an example. Did I? I didn't give you a list, did I? But core principles can be all the different kind of words. It can be optimism. It can be whatever you want it to be. I do this with teams. I did it with our church. I do it with the Lobo golf team, and everything means something. But for my personal self, my core principles is the word apple. And what it stands for, A is anti-fragile, which for me means I'm not going to be fragile. I'm going to be anti-fragile. I'm going to control what I can control and all of that. The first P in apple for me is present. I want to live present. I want to be present. So I'm going to be where my feet are. I'm going to be where I'm at. So I'm anti-fragile. Nothing can shake me. Nothing can change me. Nothing can stop me from living my mission and my vision. I'm going to be anti-fragile. I'm going to be present. Number 3 is I'm going to be proactive, which means I'm going to get stuff done. I'm going to go for things. I'm going to get ahead. I'm not going to react. I'm going to respond, and I'm going to have routines, and I'm going to prepare because I can only control my attitude, my preparation, and my effort. My L is lead. I'm going to be a leader, and whatever it is I do, I'm going to lead, which means I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to lead my family. I'm going to lead my wife. I'm going to lead my kids. I'm going to lead them into the things that God has created me to do so that they have someone that they're watching and that they're seeing, right? And then the E for me is enthusiasm. I love what Coach Harbaugh, there's the 2 Harbaugh brothers, they said their dad would tell them every day when he would drop them off for school to attack the day with enthusiasm. Enthusiasm wins. Nobody wants to be around you if you are an energy vampire. You're useless if you're an energy vampire. Bring the Juice is all about enthusiasm. When people are around you, do they think that you actually want to be around them or not? Do you bring life and energy into whatever situation? You know what enthusiasm makes up for? Enthusiasm can make up for a lack of skill, a lack of competence sometimes. It's like, I don't know if they know fully what they're doing, but I'm about to buy from this salesman because, man, he's enthusiastic. You've probably bought something from someone just because they were excited about it, and you're like, I don't know what I just did. Commercials come at you with enthusiasm to buy things. That's why we buy them. So for me, it's Apple, enthusiasm, A-P-P-L-E. And then my tagline on that is an apple a day can change the world someday. That's what I tell myself. So if I'm living in my core principles, an apple a day will change the world someday. That's what I tell myself every day. That if I'm eating the apple every day, what is that? The other saying is what? An apple a day keeps the doctor away. For me, it's an apple a day will change the world someday. That if I'm committed to being anti-fragile, if I'm committed to being present, if I'm committed to being proactive, if I'm committed to leading, if I'm committed to being enthusiastic, somebody's life will get better just because I showed up. And then I'm living my mission, inspiring, educating, empowering others to be all that God created them to be. Then I also encourage people to get a personal performance motto. Think Notre Dame, they have the sign play like a champion today. The Seattle Seahawks have a sign that says all in. We adopted that at our church. So if you were ever at our church and you walk out of our green room or any of our offices, we have signs that say all in. And I tell people, tap them. Hey, I'm all in. I'm crossing the line here. I'm going from I'm just in the green room to I'm all in. I'm all in for the people of God today. I'm all in. For me, it's pretty obvious. Mine is bring the juice today. If you do get my daily juice texts, that's the tagline at the end. Bring the juice today. That's my personal performance motto. Bring the juice today. That's why before I preach, bring the juice, Steve. Bring the juice. Bring the juice. Bring the juice. Bring some enthusiasm. So this is a process that I would encourage everyone to do. This takes some time. You can get frustrated. Go look up motivational words and make your core principles. Get 3 to 5 of them and say, I'm going to live by this. One of them could be faith. One of them could be, there's all, whatever the different words are, inspiration, whatever you want to go find, you can do. All right, moving on. The 3 culture killers holding you back from your true potential. What I put there for this question is drawing a line in the sand, because the reality is we all need to draw a line in the sand and say, I call them above the line and below the line behaviors. I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and this is who I'm going to be, and this is This is who I'm not going to be. I'm going to draw a line in the sand. I'm not going to leave it to chance, and there's no gray area. This is who I'm going to be. So no BCD. One of the things that we have to draw on the line in the sand is that I'm going to commit to, I'm going to have no BCD. The B is bad body language or blaming. I'm not going to have bad body language or blaming. A true sign of someone that's average is always looking for where to assign the blame. Someone that wants to be elite and grow says, how can we just fix this? Sometimes we spend so much time trying to blame everybody and everything else for why we don't have or we didn't do, when the reality is we need to just do our own and take care of it. The C is no complaining or getting complacent. So this is culture. This works in your businesses and your jobs. Create a culture where there's no bad body language and there's no blaming, there's no complacency or complaining. And the D is there's no getting defensive. Because once someone gets defensive, nobody wins. Your boss has to come to you and say, hey, you did this. My default is, because I have a boss, it's my dad, and he's not like super like easy on me all the time. Naturally, sometimes I want to get defensive, and instead I'm just like, you know what? Cool. Like I will honor you and do it this way. And then on the other side of that, when I do that, I've actually grown because I get better, because oftentimes he saw something I didn't. But my natural attitude sometimes is, well, they just don't know. Well, neither do you. And you say, well, yeah, I do. Well, you actually haven't been in their position to know. Anyway, just a thought. To be good at what we do. Number 2, culture killer is if you keep a we over me mentality. We don't want a we over me. We want a me. We want a we over me. We don't want a me over we. Right? We win, not just me win. We're all in this together. Whatever your team is, whatever your team looks like. So if you own a company or a business, culture you can create is a we over me. If you're an employee somewhere, be about the we, not just the me, because when the we wins, you win. And then again, number 3, be a fountain. We have to be energy givers versus energy suckers. We want to be a fountain, not a drain. Energy giver or an energy vampire. You could even put that in there instead of the word sucker. Because we've got to what? Bring the juice. Because if you're juiceful, you're useful. Juice represents life. Questions to ask yourself when you accurately evaluate yourself. Are you a fountain or are you a drain most of the time? What do people around you say you are? Because people around you will tell you. I walked into the Albuquerque Country Club the other day, and the general manager, her name's Leah, nice lady. I walked in and I was like laser-like focused because I was going to go play and whatever. She said, what the heck? And I said, what? She goes, where's your smile? And I'm like, what? She goes, every time you come in here, you're smiling and you're like, great. And she's like, you don't have a smile. Is something wrong? And I was like, dang, Steve, like I'm the smile guy, right? Because smiling's contagious. So it was a good check on me that like, hey, I need to walk in and smile and stay intentional about that. The one time I don't, she called me out. She doesn't know I'm the smile, bring the juice guy. She has no clue what I do. Other than she knows I work at a church, but she doesn't know past that. But she called me out. It was just 2 days ago. She's like, where's your smile? I was like, I don't know. I was trying to think of like, where was my smile? I was like, crap, I should have just walked back out, walked back in. And hey, guys, but I didn't do that. It was just weird. Because usually I try to walk in and I try to smile at people. Go figure. It makes people feel better if you smile at them. The RBF thing is a real thing, and you shouldn't have that. You need to smile. Listen, smiling doesn't cost you and I anything. We can create a better culture just by smiling. High five. I talk about high five zones. Have a high five zone. High five people, fist bump people, celebrate other people. Quit worrying about, no one's celebrating me. No one needs to because I'm great. If you need someone to celebrate you, it's because you're average. Ooh, come on. Because last time I checked, we don't do enough celebrating of Jesus, and he did everything. So anyway, okay. Another question to ask yourself is, what can you do to be more intentional about putting we over me? This part, ships. What will you do to connect with a teammate at a deeper level this year? So Coach Mac Brown was asked the $1 million question. You say, what's the $1 million question? I believe the $1 million question is this. What do you know now that you wish you knew then? If you ever get a chance to ask people that are successful, this is a great question. What do you know now that you wish you knew then? So actually, Coach Mac Brown, who used to be the head coach of the University of Texas, was asked this question. And here were his answers. He said 3 things. He said, 1, you got to stick to your core principles. To be successful, you need to stick to your core principles. So for me, I need to stick to Apple or in your organization, your team. He said the second one is have fun. That blank, ignore that blank. That was my typo. Second one was just, you got to have fun. I do this when I coach my little kids' basketball teams. I say, hey guys, there's a couple rules. And on our third one, there's 3 rules. It said, because when they were real little, it's listen to your coaches, because they were little. Number 2 is don't throw the ball unless someone's looking. Because little kids, right, we're playing basketball and they're 5. They're throwing passes, people getting hit in the face. Third one, have fun. And I have them scream, have fun. Because we don't need to overthink it. Like, listen to your coaches. At that age, don't throw the ball unless someone's looking. Third rule is have fun. Then he says, third one is you have to sail the right ships. What do you mean sail the right ships? He said you got to invest in relationships, leadership, before you can win championships. We've got to learn to sail the right ships. We have to invest in the right things. We have to invest in relationships and leadership before we can win championships. So again, question to ask yourself, what does it look like for you to be connected to your teammates in whatever it is that you do? Page 52. I think we're almost done. I'm going to do pretty good on time here. Look at that. Number 1 characteristic of elite performers, E plus R equals O. We mentioned this earlier, event plus response equals outcome. K minus A equals 0. Knowledge minus action equals nothing. This is just for you to self-assess. Please reflect on a time when you picked a great response to an adverse event and it put the outcome in your favor. And then the second piece, list a time when you didn't pick a great response to an adverse event and it didn't put the outcome in your favor. All right, let's talk about leadership real quick, the last few things. I have 6 C's of leadership here. Connection, character, competence, consistency, communication, and courage. You've probably heard a million different things on leadership. These are just the 6 that I like to talk about because a leader has to be great at connecting with others. Leader has to have character, who you are when no one else is watching, which is also our core principles. I'm going to be the Apple guy. So if I'm anti-fragile, if I'm present, if I'm productive, if I'm leading, and if I'm enthusiastic, it's going to keep me from doing dumb stuff. Because if I'm focused. Again, remember, how do we block out distractions? By locking in on what we want to do. If I'm playing golf and I see water to the right and all I'm telling myself is don't go in the water, no. I want to hit the ball here. I'm going to hit the ball on the left side of the green. That's where I'm going to hit the ball. That's what I'm thinking about. I'm not thinking about where I don't want to go. I'm thinking about where I want to go. That's how we get away from what we don't want to do. But if it's like sin in our life, don't sin, don't sin, don't sin, don't sin, don't sin. Get yourself something else to do so that you don't sin. Quit thinking about not sinning because you're going to just do it. Anyway, character, competence. To be a leader, you have to be competent in what you're doing. You also have to be consistent. Nobody likes being around somebody who's crazy moody. And if you want to lead people and be about growth and be better, you can't be moody. Nobody likes moodiness. Nobody likes your pity party. It's the only party where no one actually wants to get invited, is your pity party. Misery loves company. We always want to take people. We've got to be consistent. We've got to be great at communication. We've got to communicate with people and all of that. And then we've got to be courageous. Leaders have to go first. Leaders have to be willing to take the tough stands and do the tough things. So again, leadership, skill, self-assessment. I want you just to rate yourself on all 6 of those things. No 7s. Go figure. But rate yourself on each of those 1 to 10. This is just for you so that you can say, okay, maybe where can I get better? Where can I grow? Where can I develop on any of those 6 characteristics of a leader? All right, and then you can see all the different questions that you can ask yourself. What will you do to develop stronger connection with those you lead? Be specific. What will you do to develop a stronger character in yourself? Be specific. What will you do to develop more competence in your life and as a leader? Be specific. What will you do to build the skill of mental, emotional, behavioral consistency? And be specific, and then so on and so forth. Some people tell me, and you might be honest with this too, I just don't have the time to add a lot of growth pieces. Anybody ever been in that? Or maybe you're in that. I'm like that. One of the greatest things I've found is I've enrolled in Automobile University. Automobile University, you're like, what's that? That's when I drive, I'm intentional with what I do when I drive. I listen to specific podcasts. I listen to specific audiobooks. I listen to the Bible. I do that when I drive. I tend to like to have music on when I drive or nothing, but I've been intentional with it. So when my personal schedule, I literally put, because I have a 25-minute drive from my house to the office every day. So I schedule what I'm going to do in those 25 minutes. So the first part, I literally have physical triggers because I know my landmarks on my way to my office. So I have physical triggers. At this point, from leaving my house to this point, I listen to this podcast. And usually it's a 3-minute podcast. From this point to this point, I listen to the Bible. From this point to this point, I might throw this podcast on. From this point to this point, depending on what day it is, if I'm preaching, the last point, I throw on some worship music so that I can just get my mind in the right zone. If it's just a work day, I have a podcast that I want to listen to as my last thing. And I have a set of things that I listen to or that I do in my Automobile University. So that's just another little thing. It's not even in here, but this is a thought for you. Automobile University. So last page here, your big 3 strategies. I want you just to take a minute and write these things down. What are your big 3 strategies that you're going to implement from this workshop? What's your number 1, number 2, and number 3? What are some things that you picked up or that you're going to get, that you got out of this? And then you can see at the back, there's just those concentration grids and notes for you if you wanted to make copies of all of that stuff. But what are your big 3 strategies?
All right. Give it up for Pastor Stevie. Come on, wasn't that good? Man.
Let me see.
Hey.
Did you figure out that lock? No. Let me ask you one question. Let me ask everybody this question. Does anybody in this room know that 3-digit combination? I think one person might. I do. Could you have asked me? Here's a culture piece.
That's good.
You don't have to know the answer to everything, but just be willing to ask.
Hey,
Somebody knows the answer, go
find
find
it.
it.
Again. Goodness.
The number's 240612, just if you want to unlock it.
But he's going to keep his 20. He's going to keep his
But
20.
I got to keep the 20, but anyway.
No, so what we're going to do for the next few minutes, we said we would end at 12:15. So if you've got to get up or you made plans, nobody's going to like boo you if you need to move or shuffle. If you need to go to the bathroom, if you want to go up and get another breakfast taco. By the way, we have 6 left for each of you on your way out. You will get those anyways as you leave with some fruit. But what I want to do for the next few moments, maybe 15 or 20 minutes, is just take questions. And we have Kyle right over here with the microphone. You can whisper the question to him if you don't want to use the microphone. Or you can stand up with good body posture, shoulders back, head up.
Ask with confidence.
Ask with confidence. We'll pass it around really on anything we've talked about. You can also ask Pastor Steve any deep theological questions that you need, any transcendent,
and I'm going to pass those right to
metaphysical questions. He would love to try to answer those as well. Anybody? We'll just go ahead.
So I know you said you don't really work with the mental side of that, it's very complex, but I know you work with a diverse amount of different people. So for me, I personally have mental disorders, both depression and anxiety. So a lot of this is like really, really good, but those are also barriers to myself. So how can I work past the barrier of having depression, but also being able to implement it and not allow it to hinder me in my progress and whatnot?
Sure. So actually, just the other day, I was on the golf course working with a team, and then I got a call from a young lady who's a professional tennis player. And she was talking about how she has an eating disorder and some of that, and how she can go, when she's on tour, she's great, she comes home and she super deep depression. So I actually kind of had a question similar. What I say, and again, I'm not a super clinical psychologist. I'm a sports psychologist, so it is different. But for me, it always goes to, I don't have, because I've been there where it's like, I'm struggling with this. But if I'm busy keeping myself in routines and keeping myself doing the things I need to do, it helps me to eliminate the ability to go to the depression. So like for her, I said, well, when you get home, what's your habit loop? Well, the trigger is I'm home, I'm not training, I'm not doing this, so I sit in my room. Well, what happens then? Well, I spiral into depression over a week. I said, well, okay, so let's change the habit loop. Trigger, come back home. Habit now, or attitude as opposed to go in my room and hibernate, create a schedule before I get home of what I'm going to do next. Because again, it's the blocking out distractions by locking in on what I want to do. So if that's not a piece of what I want, because I don't want to sit in the depression or anxieties or whatever, I'm going to lock into what I do want to do and just continue to practice acting my way into that feeling. Because depression becomes a feeling and then it becomes more, right? So I got to get myself away from that feeling by acting different than how I feel here. So that's how I've kind of helped people do that. But again, I'm not a clinical psychologist. I'm a sports psychologist. Big difference. But it still works. Because that's why I say I'm not mental health, but it's mental performance. Because I do believe this is preventative for a lot of those things. Because if I'm doing this, I'm preventing that from happening within me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I always kind of go back to, the Bible says that God's created a spirit, soul, and body. They're all interrelated. God's isn't just the spirit. It's also the soul and the body, our mind, our feelings, our emotions, and then our physiology as well. And so there will be some times where, I'm not an aunt, my wife's a physician. There are times where physiologically to get through something, you can obviously lean in and avail yourself of medicine. I think it's an all of the above. To your point, I was kind of thinking about pilots. And about how they're trained. I mean, they have a window. They can see the weather outside. They can see how close the ground is, but they don't rely on what they feel it is. They rely on their instruments. And I think a lot of what Stevie did this morning was really give us some instruments that when the storm comes or the weather comes, you can fall back on your routines, your instruments, and get through the storm. Does that make sense? I think, yeah, so it's just kind of both sides of it is what I don't know if that was...
Yeah, no.
Is that good? I mean, what do you think?
I think it's great.
I need some affirmation. I'm average.
You're amazing.
I'm average. I need some affirmation.
I should not answer. You're so good.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Hey, real quick, before we get another question.
Here we go.
The Daily Juice text, if you don't have it, I should have made a slide for it. If you pull out your phone and start a text message, the phone number, or you can write it down real quick, is 505-393-4773. Shameless plug for the Daily Juice text. But that's a way to build an elite mindset, is to read elite things. So 505-393-4773. What you're going to do is start a text message, send the word juice to that text message. It'll send you a link. You have to click the link, put your info in, and you'll start getting them. They come every morning at 7:30 your time, because it's 6:30 my time, I'm Mountain Time. So 6:30 my time, 7:30 yours. On the weekend, it'll come at 8:30. I have it all scheduled, and I plan it and do it. So anyway, that's the Daily Juice text. It's a way to build an elite mindset, is to read elite things. And it's free for you. It doesn't cost you anything but to read it.
Yeah,
so
it's great.
Anyway.
I get it every morning. It's awesome. What do you got?
Okay, so when you're leaving here, you've got all these wonderful things, and we're not those people who go to a really great seminar and kick it under the couch afterwards. We're those people that look at it every day, right? What's the number one thing that we do when we leave here to start the routine and to actually start implementing everything that we learn? Because of course we're not human.
So you're saying what would I say is the most important next step, basically? So I had you write the three biggest things you want to implement. So I would start with number one, whatever that was, if you wrote something down. So I would just do that and start that. Really, if you really want to get detailed, AM, PM routines, I think, is a phenomenal way because that can start you in a process, and it's simple. Making your bed, simple. AM, PM routine, simple. For those of us that maybe don't already do that. If you already do that, great. But whatever you wrote down, that's why I said, what are your 3 big takeaways? Because we have to process that. And then, again, how do we eat the elephant one bite at a time? So I say, whatever you wrote down for 1, 2, and 3. If you didn't write anything down, go back through and write down what was the biggest thing, what spoke to me the most. Implement that. That's what I say to do because everybody's different. Some people might already have routines and habits of excellence and all that down, but they need the mindset piece or they need the whatever. So I think whatever you wrote down, do that. Does that answer that?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So yes to answer is like, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know exactly what, if I just follow, because you gave me a recipe book, your supports on cooking. So you gave me my mise en place.
Mm-hmm.
But still educating, the actual recipe. So for me, it's like, okay, so step one, start with my hands. So tonight, as my homework, before I don't watch Bridget go to sleep for the 15th time, step one is writing it down tonight what I want to do to implement. Because of course, Sunday is the first day of the week.
Yeah, correct. And then maybe even assess today. Just practice the well, better, how right away. What did I do well today? What could I do better? How could I do it? Habit tracking probably then, since that's going to be new for everyone, that might be the number one thing. I've never been asked that question per se, because usually it's one-on-one or whatever. So the habit tracking app is that's the number one app I use with everyone. So if nobody does anything else but start tracking habits that you say you want to grow, that's what I would do. So maybe tonight, start building out your habits.
As you were talking, I was plugging it. I'm already at it.
So there you go. So now assess those. What did I do today? What didn't I do today? And yeah, so that's perfect.
That's good. And a lot of what he, every single person's different. And I think sometimes constraining yourself to a system is really helpful. Shameless plug. We actually created a system for our team that talks a lot. We call it the start and stop routine. It's the same thing as morning and evening. And it's the better planner. And so when he gets into the kind of some of the vision and kind of how you lay out your time management stuff, we literally have a practice that's setting your ideal week, auditing every day, what's the top thing you want to get done, how do you start and stop, and so you can hit that. I think we just changed it to, you can go to betterplanner.com and take a look at that system too, and there's a tutorial there, but it gives a lot of kind of bones to some
That's
of that
what
too.
we've talked about, like when I talk about the stuff I do and then what he does, it's like, we should just do these things together everywhere, because the time management organization, when he showed me the Better Planner, I was like, oh, well, that's way better than what I'm saying.
It's way better. It is way better. I agree with you on that. It is way better. I agree with that.
I'm not helping you.
He's going to
at
pay it back
all
on the golf
today.
course.
Yeah, exactly.
Trust me.
How do I do this? I don't know. You suck.
He's gonna go, just visualize it. I'm going to go visualize it. I'm like
Visualize
swing the
how
club.
bad you are. It's terrible.
First thing I want to say is, you talk way faster than Pastor Steven.
That's a compliment, I think.
That's is that a compliment? We're not sure.
Steven, it's normal now. I was like, woo!
He's going quick.
So you were talking about how, when you were saying you can't do stuff for other people, you can only do it for yourself. Someone else can't make you do something. Like, I can't make my kids go to school and get education. I can encourage them, but like they have to do that. It's not something, and so I carry that burden for them. Do you have any wisdom for how to get your children to get past that?
So what I practice with my kids now, mine are younger, so I'm not an expert. But so for myself, I'm trying to give them the tools and train them, but I have to, for me, I'm teaching myself to let it go if they don't do those things. And so a lot of it still, I just internalize it. So I don't know best practices on that. I'm always leery when anybody tells me how to raise kids anyway, because most people just get lucky. Right?
Oh, all of our kids are going to need Jesus and counseling.
Yes.
Because of what we did and didn't do.
They're going to blame us for everything anyway, because I blame my parents. So I just speak to, like, my job with them for me is I want them to be all that God created them to be, but they have to want that too. My job is just to give them the tools and give them the things, because here's what I know, they're going to come back to it. Yeah. When the Bible says train up a child in the way they should go, it's not that they're not going to do their own thing, because we've all done our own thing, but I'm just laying foundation for giving them something to go back to when adversity hits, because it will. So that's what I tell myself. Yep. So that way I'm not taking it personal either, because then it's almost like, well, I didn't do my job. And it's like, well, I mean, one, I didn't know how to do my job. So I was figuring out, I got a 10-year-old, that's my oldest, and for 10 years I've been trying to figure this crap out, and I still don't know what I'm doing.
We figured it out. Me and Kyla will talk to you guys later.
Oh. Well, never mind. I will. You're such a. I love this guy.
I do think, and to your point, I do think that, like, sometimes we can get so wrapped up in the future that we neglect the present. It's one of the reasons I love bringing Pastor Stevie in, and we focus a lot on really Christian life planning here. And at the end of the day, if you're strong, everyone connected to you will be stronger. And so I think it all kind of comes back to your kids aren't going to do what you say forever, if ever, okay? They're going to do what you do. And statistic after statistic, when you take a look at the next generation and the generation after that, they're following the example that their family set. I say this to a lot of people. It's like, as strong as you are, that strength is going to actually be what covers them. We try to hold them and protect them forever, but the truth is the world's coming, and it's actually our job to prepare them to be able to succeed and be strong. And I think we model that in ourselves. Like when we need to ask forgiveness, when we need grace, we let them watch that. We watch how they watch us go through adversity is everything. More's caught than necessarily taught. Taught's there, but they're going to watch you. And I think that's kind of a good rule of thumb. I mean, at the end of the day, the best thing you and I can do for our kids is that they grow up knowing and loving Jesus, right? And that's going to be probably our greatest accomplishment anyways. Yeah.
That makes me feel better because that's what my vision has been. I've been building foundation for myself and then for them and just giving them the tools, but watching it and not feeling guilty or whatever if they don't do it. So that helps.
Because then we're teaching them, because how do I tell my kids, I'm the mental guy, how do I tell them control what you can control, but then when I can't control them, I freak out on them. Like I'm fully opposite of everything I'm teaching everybody else. And so that's just me practicing that. I can't control them. I can just advise them. But again, that's where the mission statement helps. My job is to inspire, educate, and empower them to be, they're my clients just like Pastor Stephen could be or anybody else. That I treat them, how would I treat these kids if they were somebody else's and they brought them to me? Because we're always so gracious on everybody else's kids, but not our own. Because it's a reflection of me.
Exactly.
Well, me and Kyla aren't, but you guys are. Yeah.
Thank you, Pastor Steve. I appreciate that.
You're a mess.
I'm so messing with him, by the way. Okay, right over here. We had another hand right here.
I just wanted to say something as an educator.
Ooh.
I'm a 20-year educator. So some things that you can do is don't use sarcasm with them. Set routines that are positive routines. So like when you get ready for homework, everybody gets around the table and does homework. You know what I'm saying? When you get ready to read, everybody gets ready to read. And read, people, read with your children. If you don't model reading for them, then they don't have good models. I'm an interventionist, so I work with kids who struggle. So, another thing is take the electronics away.
Yeah.
They are not your babysitter.
Hey, there's another workshop in her. Stay tuned. We're going to come back with another workshop, I promise. I promise. That's really good advice. Really good advice.
If you're wondering why your children are misbehaving, it's because you're not paying attention to them.
No.
That goes to being present then, right? You got to be where they're at. You got to be
It all
present.
comes in how you live. Yep, absolutely. And another couple questions. Yeah. Another workshop. I'm serious. We're going to come back.
That was good. I'm good. I got what I
One
needed
more
out of
question.
today right
Go ahead.
there.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got that one.
I just want to say thank you for coming. I was hesitant coming to this class, hesitant coming to this church. I'm coming out of some deep hurts, but we just brought so much, tons of confirmation. And so for me, I am in a health and wellness business, and so I work for myself and have for 4 years, and I have invested so much time into undoing and unlearning bad habits in culture and environmental dysfunction. I think we all can agree dysfunction is normal in homes. It's just there. But I'm very careful who I let speak into my ear because I've invested so much time and energy to unlearn and undo, to relearn God's principles and his values and to structure my life according to his word. So for me, I'm in a direct sales business, but I am struggling with my upline. I'm struggling with people that say one thing but then do another because God has clearly said to me, you're going to build this my way, not man's way. And that's a strong struggle when you've got, that tug, because you want to be a part of the team, but yet you don't really fit into that team. But you want to respect it, but you don't respect what they say and how they're doing it. Or you don't necessarily believe in manifestation, lead as a prayer. So there's a lot of things that I don't necessarily agree with. Not that they're bad people, it's just, it's a struggle, and so I've lost a lot, and I'm rebuilding, but I'm wanting to rebuild it God's way. How do you tackle that? How do you approach that? I've had a spiritual life coach to help me go through and focus more on myself and learning to love myself. Now I'm moving into another phase, but how do you build in today's society with the business that I have? And it's not that it's a struggle to put God first, because without Him I don't even have anything. I'm nothing. And to convey that in a loving way, but yet stand firm in who you are in an industry that I'm in. And so, I don't know if that makes sense. To the question.
Yeah, so
I'm wanting to ask this of someone, but I don't trust everyone.
sure. So my initial answer to that is because a lot of times you hear people like, you can lead from the bottom. I don't really ever believe that. I believe God always works through order, rank, and authority. Even if it's bad authority, they're still there, because how we honor that is how we eventually honor God, right? When it says, children, obey your parents and Lord, honor your father
We're
and
actually
mother.
talking about that on Wednesday, and that still relates to God first. That's still a related to God commandment. Yeah,
But I think for me, just a quick answer to your question, because your question is probably way deeper than what I have to be able to offer right this second. But controlling your ape is huge. Attitude, preparation, and effort, right? So controlling what I can control is a huge piece of that, because you can't control that they want to do manifestations versus prayer. Like you're not going to change them. So I think you just learn how to operate honoring God within whatever system you have and that they've been given to you. Because and then the second piece of that is, I don't think I would. So for me, I try not to take on the burden of changing, or like, I just give them the respect that is due based off of what it is, but that doesn't mean I agree with how they do it, if that makes any sense at all. Like, I don't have to agree for me to just still do my job and do what I do well. I don't have to do it that way. Now, if they try to force me to, well, I remember growing up, my dad told me all the time, he said, hey, you have to obey us unless I ask you to do something unbiblical, which thankfully he's never done. But I have had people that have asked me to do things unbiblical, even in mental performance coaching, and I'm like, I'm not going to do that. So I draw a line in the sand. I don't think I have a phenomenal answer for you, but my big thing is always I go back to, what can I control and what can I not control in that? Because that's just going to help your headspace. You can't control that they want to do it this way, but within that, what can I control? How can I, because they don't get to dictate how I operate. Like, does that make sense in some ways? They don't get to dictate how I think. I go to the guy that, he was in the concentration camps. What was his name? Is it Frankl? Yeah, Viktor Frankl, right? He talks about that in that book. If you're not familiar with it, but some of us probably are, about how they took away all his freedoms, but they didn't take away his mind. And they couldn't take that. They could do all this other stuff, but they couldn't make him lose hope. They couldn't make him quit. They couldn't make him just lay over and die. He said, I still had control in my mind. And so that's kind of where I try to go with mental performance. And I'm big on, I try to stay in my lane. So I don't try to answer things outside of what I feel comfortable in. And that's why even with parenting, I'm the first guy to say, I don't know everything. I just give thoughts and tips. And I'm like, everybody has to contextualize it for themselves, because I'm very good at, if you gave me an athlete or a salesperson, I can get you some enthusiasm. I can get you going. I can get you rolling. And I can help you create an MVP process and a culture. Very comfortable with that. I try to stay, in my lane. So I don't know if my answer is going to help you a ton, but it probably gives you a few thoughts, but you may have more on it
I have
than
a couple.
do.
I mean, to your point, I would agree with everything that you said. Every situation's uniquely, granular. To that point, here's what I would say. We naturally tend towards negative emotion, and we're attracted to the negative things that happen, because usually those are the things that slap us in the face or take us out, right? So we're hyper aware of that, but that tendency makes us a lot less aware of the good things that are happening, and specifically the granular things that we can control. So a lot of times we want to go super macro, right? We're doing this right now with identity politics. You're all in this, you're all in that, you're all in that. And it's easy for us to say something and not really believe it, be thought to be virtuous and to feel okay. Whereas it's a lot harder to zoom in at the most granular level of your situation and ask the question, what am I responsible for? What's the thing that I've got to do differently? What are the things that I can't control is essentially what you're doing. All of a sudden, that creates so much clarity. And quite frankly, it's like you said this about goal setting. We set a goal with the goals to go there, but human beings are actually aim creatures. There's a reason why sports people, have you ever went into like a sports scenario and you thought, what's going on there? Well, it's like the football goes through the, whatever it goes through, and the basketball goes through the hoop, and we're kicking something into the net. Like my point is like we're aim driven, and I think enjoying kind of the understanding that your fulfillment actually comes from the process of working on what you can work on to get better. It doesn't necessarily come from every single other person around you and how they operate. And here's the thing, the Bible says that the integrity of the righteous will guide them. Right? And integrity doesn't need a defense. It just needs a person doing it. What they see is what they get. And I think you just can't lose being that way. And one of the things that I've tried to do recently that's actually, believe it or not, is really difficult is just being completely honest in situations. Couple things. When I need to say something, saying it. That takes courage. You need to say it right and be precise in how you say it, right? That matters. But when I need to grow up and get over it, actually growing up and getting over it. So there's two things there, right? And so being honest there's some areas where I need to grow, not maximizing their wrong and minimizing yours. But then also there are times where God will put you in positions where it does take courage to stand up and say the truth and then deal with the consequences of it, because we're all adults in here, right? And so we do that. And so those are some things that I've been working on in my own life, watching even just those little micro things where I'm not completely honest, or I want to get out of a conversation, so we have all these tricks instead of just saying, hey, I need to leave. Hey, I've got to move on. I have something else. Making excuses. We do it starts with just the little things, and there's so many things that when you look deep and granular, there are so many things that you can work on that you don't need to worry about them. Because you're so occupied on you and working on that stuff and growing more towards Christ that you end up shining brighter and going higher. It's been my observation anyways. I don't know if that's helpful, but it's a free sermon. You guys, nobody has to go to church. I'm kidding, you do this week. But anyways, one more and we'll close it down. Is there one more? Do we have one more? If not, we'll pray out. Do we have one more?
So I have I guess it's mainly more towards sports. I'm a firefighter. I'm in charge of training people, like 5 guys on my station. What do you find is the most helpful? Because we pretty much just have to master basic skills very well, which means repetitively practicing those skills. What do you find is the best to kind of keep people motivated, just pretty much re-practicing the basics over and over and over again?
What's the name of the book? There's a great book about a guy, he was watching Kobe, right? And so I'm storytelling. So for me to keep you mastering the basics is like keeping the reward in front, that like, hey, we're like, was it Sully the pilot, the airplane guy, the movie that came out, right? He was talking about, I knew I could do it because I'd practiced for this moment. So, but there's a great one on Kobe. This guy went in, he's actually a basketball trainer, and he said Alan Stein is his name. I forget the name of his book. It's a great book. Alan Stein Jr. is his name. But he said he got to go in and watch Kobe work out. He said, hey, can I go watch you work out? And Kobe got there at like 5:30 in the morning or something. And he said, I watched this guy for hours just doing the most basic fundamental footwork, everything. He's like, what the heck? And he said he went to Kobe and he asked him, he said, you just worked out crazy. I mean, you're the greatest, at the time, you're the greatest player in the league right now, and you're doing this. He said, why did you just work on all the fundamentals? He said, because those things are what allows me to have those hero moments later. Those things and practicing that. So what I would say, because I'm always trying to just find new ways and new stories to tell the guys when I'm working with new teams. So it's going to be a lot of you like researching, finding stories, getting creative with how you can tell the story. But like for you, you're a firefighter. So that one's easy enough to say, all of this enables us to be heroes later because someone's going to need this. Well, we haven't used it in 20 years. Yeah, but there's going to be that one time where we needed to use it. Say that again.
Raise your game or sustain your game.
Alan Stein, Raise Your Game. That's the one. I didn't know he had a second one, so hey. Raise Your Game by Alan Stein Jr. That's the book. I got that story from. But I just thought it was interesting that Kobe said, you know why I'm the greatest? It's because I'm doing this. I'm the greatest because I'm doing the fundamentals. And so for me, it's every time I'm working with a new team or whatever, and a lot of it's reminders. That's what I tell guys all the time. I'm like, you've heard some mental coach, you've heard a coach say these things. I'm the reminder to keep doing them because you continually need the reminders. Because if you don't, you forget, right? That's why we go to church every week. I need a constant reminder. I need to be reminded of, oh, yes. I'm going to need reminded when I play golf later. Hey, get over it and hit the next shot. Stay present. He's going to remind me, and then I'm going to just, laugh at him as I win. And just kidding. It's fine. It's fine. No, you're not. I don't feel bad about that part.
No, you're not. Hey, let's give it up for Pastor Steve. He did do a great job. Man. Well, before we go, let me pray us out, and then you guys are welcome to stay here and eat as many breakfast tacos as you'd like. You can take 5 or 6 of them on your way. I don't know if I've said that yet, but let me pray for you. God, I thank you so much for each and every one of these leaders, no matter where they are, Father. They're leading in their homes. They're leading in their workplaces. Many of them are leading in their families and their churches. Father, I pray right now that you would just bless them. I pray, God, that by your Holy Spirit, you would give them that one or those 2 things that they could work on, those things in their life when applied from your word, Father, from this workshop would make all the difference in their life. I pray, God, as we continue to grow up and into what you've called us to do, may we continue to honor you and put you first in our life. God, we love you. We thank you in Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. Thanks for hanging out with us. We'll see you here this weekend. Tomorrow.